Hi, I'm Dean Clevenger here at Endava Global. Here to talk about the DISCflex and how we anticipate using that at University of Central Florida, where I'm a faculty member teaching a large lecture management course. My colleague and I will spend a little bit of time just talking about why we think this tool is valuable and how it will help you to grow as an individual, to flex your behaviors and get the most out of your behavioral responses to different situations.
My name is Christopher Leo. I'm an adjunct instructor at the University of Central Florida. I work in the Department of Management, and I'm here with my friend and colleague, Dr. Dean Clevenger, who was also a mentor to me, professor in the master's program that I took, and also obviously works with me in the department. And we're here today to talk about DISCflex and how it relates to emotional intelligence and how important the aspect of emotional intelligence is, both in a professional setting in the workplace and also with your personal lives as well. Relationships with family, friends, peers, etc.
Chris and I were talking about on the drive up here, the importance of being able to flex your behaviors, which obviously we haven't introduced and you as an audience don't know about quite yet, but the notion that essentially behaviorally we need to be more intelligent, and the benefits of having a higher behavioral intelligence and what that means. What do you think that means, Chris?
I think that if you're in an organizational setting, a professional setting with your boss or supervisor, or even with your coworkers, there are times or situations where you actually have to flex your behavior to meet the needs of the situation. And we might be working with an employee who, for instance, demonstrates a dominant characteristic where, preferably probably a supervisor or boss, that is very demanding of us and is focusing on deadlines and less about how we interact and work and how we get our job done. They just are results oriented. And in that situation, and a lot of us have been in that situation, you feel certain aspects, you feel different behaviors inside, but how do you flex those behaviors to meet the needs of different personalities, of different characteristics of your coworkers and your boss? And DISCflex really helps you not only recognize that behavior, but also gives you the ability to adapt to that situation. Do you dial up? Do you dial down? How do you appease your boss, influence your boss or supervisor so he or she will listen to you and possibly hear your ideas instead of being more just bottom line, results oriented, kind of standoffish. And of course there's different behaviors in the workplace, and I just mentioned dominance as one factor because that's pretty common in the workplace, especially with supervisors and bosses.
You're doing such a good job. Let me continue to be the interviewer for a second. So I think, as I imagine the response of our students to this kind of a curriculum, spending the amount of time it takes to watch these videos and think about each of the DISC dimensions and all the subdimensions, and to think about your own behavior and ways in which you can dial up and enhance a particular characteristic of your personality at times and dial it down. One of the main objections that I could hear is that it's an attempt to not be genuine, that by changing your behavioral response you're not being true to yourself, especially in this particular millennial generation where being authentic is what it's about, being yourself. And I think we've talked a little bit about that. Do you have any comments about how can we maintain a sense that this is our genuine selves that we're presenting, but we're just using a part of our personality a little bit more, perhaps dominance or perhaps influence in a different situation to get the desired results, to have people see us in a way that maybe more accurately reflects who we actually are? That's
a really interesting point. And what differentiates the DISCflex profile that you take, a personal assessment from Myers-Briggs, simply the Myers-Briggs kind of helps isolate your personality. The DISCflex helps you to exhibit specific behavior, so you never truly change who you are. What changes is the situation and how you handle the situation. If you adopt the philosophy of, I say what I mean and I mean what I say, and I'm just going to give everyone a piece of my mind and be completely honest, that could be self-destructive for you in an organizational setting. You have to recognize that there's a time and a place, how to behave, how to dial down maybe a dominant factor that you find yourself after taking the DISCflex profile. You might see that you're stronger in some areas and weaker in others. So given different situations, instead of just blurting out, what comes natural to you, it kind of gives you the perspective to, wait a minute, I'm recognizing this situation. I know what I would normally say, in a family setting or with my friends, but this is my boss and this is work, so I have to flex my behavior to adapt to the needs of, maybe difficult coworkers or a demanding boss. And then, of course, when you're with your friends, we engage in the same kind of behavioral flexing. You don't act the same way at home than you do at work, than you do with your friends. So
yeah, to me, that's really the key, too, is to buying into the whole agenda that we have here, the whole idea that your behaviors are something that you should fine-tune, that you should try to take captive, that you should try to control in order to have the maximum influence, is that, and when I was watching all the videos and came across this, this little piece of information made all the difference, you do it anyway. That you can't, it's undeniable that there are circumstances and situations where you're much more of an influence agent because the role calls for that. So we're teachers.
Right.
So when we're in the classroom, we definitely know that in order to be effective, no matter what our personality profile is or how strong our influence is, the reality is we need to dial it up as best we can so that we can get through to the students in a powerful way. When we get home, and if we try to be that same kind of strong influence, then our loved ones might object to that kind of behavior.
Right.
So the reality that we are doing it all the time, much like we were talking about the concept of impression management, that people are always kind of actors, always really on some kind of a stage, in some kind of a performance, and they always have some kind of an audience. And the reality is, in order to be effective as an actor, you have to understand what your role is, you have to play the part. There's nothing, in my mind, that's disgenuine about this. It's about being most effective.
Absolutely. I think that also, if you look at DISCflex and what kind of role that DISCflex plays when you're working in teams, as most of our management and practically every business student at one point or another, works in teams, and you have that team member that is difficult, the team member that is contrary or opposite or fighting you at every corner. Behavioral intelligence, having a high amount of behavioral intelligence and recognizing, first of all, what kind of behavior this person is exhibiting, and then knowing your strengths and your weaknesses, you're better equipped to handle a disruptive team member instead of just shut down, which is our first reaction, is just, okay, I'm not going to deal with this person. But the reality is, in organizational settings, you have coworkers that are like that. You don't have the luxury to shut down. You have to deal with it. So you don't change who you are, your personality, but you definitely judge the context, judge the environment, and then flex, dial up or dial down whichever behaviors that you have to deal with a difficult coworker.
I think it was, as you were speaking, it made me think one of the most critical decisions that we have to make in terms of adopting this for our students in a large lecture format is how much value there is in a curriculum like this. We have a lot of choices of different materials we could use, and why are we here, and why are we wanting our students to spend the hours required to watch these video sequences and really think about their own personality, get reflections of their personality from family and from work colleagues and other people to see what's the complete picture of who I am as a person in terms of my personality profile. One of the things that we talk about in our introductory classes, and most every management class talks about the 3 types of skills. You have the technical skills, interpersonal human skills, and then conceptual skills. And we introduce that content and always talk about how when you're a high-level executive, the most important skill type you have is the conceptual skills. You really absolutely need those to do the long-term planning. When you're a first-level employee, right away, you absolutely need those technical skills, which is what college is so brilliant at teaching you, how to do your debits and your credits and your supply-demand curves and all these tacit type knowledge things. But there's a skill category called human skills, which is a broad range of behavioral control mechanisms that you need and awareness that you need. And those are needed at every level in the organization, from when you enter the organization all the way to the top. Interestingly, when you ask large organizations, large companies, what is it that we need to do more of in the educational field? What can we do to further develop essentially the product, the student, for you. What are we doing well and what are we not doing well at? What they say we do well at is giving them the technical skills, because it's easy. That's what teaching lends itself to. Where we fail is in the human skills, in this behavioral intelligence. And that's why we're wanting to have a curriculum that's somewhat unusual, somewhat distinct from what a lot of schools do, but really focuses on helping a student to be introspective and think about who they are in terms of their personality. And there's no bad personalities, and to understand that I can take what I am and how I've been made and to control and manipulate that given the circumstances in order to get the most optimal outcome. Not to take advantage of circumstances, but to be genuine to who I am. Sometimes I just need to control my natural impulses and behave in another way to get the outcome that's best for all of us.
Absolutely.
It's a real pleasure to be here and to have the opportunity to speak about this program in a little bit of detail. One of the things that we know that has to happen before our students and probably any audience will take serious the task of examining their own behaviors and think about what kind of control they actually could have over their behaviors in the form of flexing, is that they have to believe that it's important. They have to have a buy-in, or you're not going to spend the kind of time that it requires to get these results. For someone like me who tends to be very introspective, I search for opportunities to spend long periods of time thinking about and examining who I am as a person and how I might just make a small improvement even would be hugely valuable. Other people are not quite as introspective or haven't been searching really for these. Maybe they haven't seen the need, maybe they haven't experienced the failures I have along the way, and they haven't found that need yet. A lot of you would be younger people, 18 to 21 years old, and maybe your experiences haven't been robust enough, and maybe there haven't been enough failures in your life so that you know how important it is to be able to behaviorally be intelligent. So I encourage you to really think about the potential to understand your own personality and the potential to understand the way you can influence others much more powerfully by just taking a little time to think about how you are as a person, how others are in terms of their dominant factors, and how you might best serve a meeting forum or a social engagement or interaction with others by dialing up or dialing down something that maybe in your personality might naturally emanate, but it's best if you control it or moderate it just a bit. I think it's really worth your time, and want to personally encourage you to spend the time not only watching the videos, but thinking about how this impacts you in your life and what you can learn about yourself.
So we'd like to thank you for your time, and just tell you to look forward to taking the DISCflex assessment. You will not be disappointed, and this is something that you will use both in the classroom and then after the semester concludes. You'll find it very useful in later classes, in organizational settings, and in your personal lives as well.